All right, today we're going to demystify one of the biggest and coolest shifts happening in AI right now, the rise of agents. If you thought AI was just about chatting, you're in for a surprise. We're talking about a huge leap from chatbots that just talk to AI workers that can actually do stuff.
So that leads us to the big question, right? How do you actually do that? How do you take a chatbot that, chats and turn it into an AI worker that can actually get things done? How do you give a program the power to not just understand language, but to search the web, analyze data, or even write files? That's the puzzle we're going to solve today.
And the answer, which is kind of brilliant really, boils down to three core things. You give it a brain for the thinking part, a blueprint to give its thought structure, and a toolbox so it can take action. So let's pop the hood and see how this all works.
Okay, to make this super clear, let's look at our real example. Someone asks the agent, "Tell me about LangChain and its applications and save it to a file." See that last part? And save it to a file. That little phrase changes everything. That's not just a request for an answer. That is a command to do something.
And what happens next is pretty much magic. The agent gets it. It doesn't just see the question, it sees the whole task. It goes out, researches the topic, pulls the information together, and then, this is the amazing part, it actually creates a brand new text file from scratch and puts the answer right in there. It didn't just talk, it did the work. So the big question is, how?
All right, let's start with the first piece of the puzzle, the brain. This is the engine that drives the whole thing.
So the brain in this whole operation is something you've probably heard a lot about, a large language model, or LLM for short. This is the thinking part, right? It's been trained on just an insane amount of text, which allows the agent to understand what you're asking, to reason about the steps it needs to take, and basically to come up with a plan.
And we're talking about the big names you already know. You've got the GPT series from OpenAI, the Claude series from Anthropic, and a whole bunch of others. Think of it like this. You can pretty much just plug one of these powerful brains into your agent to get the whole thing started.
Okay, so we've got a brain. That's a great start. But a brain that's just thinking random thoughts isn't very useful, right? You need to give those thoughts some structure. And that brings us to component number 2, the blueprint.
So here's the thing with using just a raw LLM. If you ask it to do some research, what you often get back is just a giant, messy wall of text. Yeah, the info's probably in there somewhere, but for another computer program to try and understand that, it's a total nightmare.
And this slide just shows it perfectly. On the left, you've got that chaotic glob of text the LLM spits out. But on the right, that's what we really want. It's clean, it's organized, it's predictable, with neat little fields for topic, summary, and so on. The blueprint is what makes this transformation happen.
And here's what that blueprint actually looks like under the hood. Now, this isn't just a friendly suggestion to the AI. Oh no, this is a strict set of rules. The agent is basically forced to format its answer to fit this exact structure. It has to give you a topic, a summary, a list of sources. It's kind of like a contract the AI has to follow, no exceptions. So what's the big takeaway here? The blueprint is what turns the AI's creative and sometimes kind of chaotic thinking into predictable, reliable data. And once you have data you can rely on, well, now you can build some seriously cool and powerful applications on top of it.
All right, we have a brain that can think and a blueprint to structure those thoughts. Now for the really fun part, giving it the power to actually do things. Let's talk about component number 3, the toolbox.
The toolbox is exactly what it sounds like. It's a set of tools or actions that the agent can use. And these aren't just abstract ideas. We're talking about actual pieces of code. You can give it a tool to search the web, another one to look up facts on Wikipedia, and you can even create your own custom tools for literally anything. Like, you guessed it, that save to a file function.
But wait, how does the brain know which tool to grab from the toolbox? The way this works is actually so simple it's brilliant. As this quote explains, all you have to do is give each tool a simple, plain English description. That's it. The LLM then reads your request, it scans the descriptions for all the tools it has, and it uses its incredible reasoning power to figure out, aha, this is the right tool for this job.
Okay, we have our 3 main parts, the brain, the blueprint, and the toolbox. But we need one last piece to bring it all together and manage the show. Let's call it the conductor. Or, if you want to get technical, the agent executor.
So, the conductor, or the agent executor, basically runs this constant loop. It's a thought process. First, it gets your request. Then it asks the brain,
hey, which tool should we use? The conductor then actually runs that tool. Say, it does a web search. The brain then looks at the results of that search and has to decide, okay, do I have my answer or do I need to grab another tool? And this cycle, thinking, acting, observing, thinking again, it just keeps going until the job is done.
So we've gone through all the nuts and bolts. Let's zoom out a bit and talk about the big picture. Why is this such a game changer?
This slide really nails the difference. A chatbot, it thinks and it talks. It's great for conversation. But an AI agent, it thinks, it acts, and it observes the results. It's not just a passive conversationalist, it's an active worker in the digital world. It doesn't just tell you what it knows, it goes out, finds new information, and then uses that information to complete a task.
And honestly, as the person in our source material put it, we are really just scratching the surface of what's possible here. When you can give an AI a goal, a set of tools, and the ability to think for itself, man, the possibilities for what we can automate and solve are just huge.
So, that leaves us with a final thought for you. Now that you've seen how these things are built, you know about the brain, the blueprint, and the toolbox, what would you have an AI agent do? If you had an AI worker that could do more than just talk, what's the first big, complex task you'd give it? It's a pretty exciting thing to think about.